Hello, everybody, and welcome to Let's Talk Relationship. I'm Stefania Pulio, your host from the Gentleman's Square, and today we have another exciting conversation with a wonderful guest. I'm so excited. I'm just bursting at the seams to introduce our lovely Laurie Hammond. Laurie Hammond. Yes, Laurie Hammond is from Colorado in the USA. And today we're going to be talking about powerful ways to become an ideal partner. Now, Laurie is also a hypnotherapist, a hypnotist, and she is a business coach. She's also, she empowers people in a professional way. And Laurie believes that the past does not predict your future because you can experience vibrant, healthy relationships, even if you've been in a dysfunctional relationship in the past. So, of course, my title says it all, and we won't spare any more time and bring in the lovely Laurie Hammond. Welcome, Laurie.
Hello, well, thank you. I'm so honored to be here.
How are you?
I'm well. How are you, Stefania?
I'm great, thanks. I'm super great, and I'm super excited to have you on the show. And I'm sure our audience here have got lots of, questions because we're going to be talking about powerful ways to attract, I guess, your ideal partner. But first of all, as the title says, I just wanted the people to know a little bit more about you. I know that, you're a hypnotist just like me, and we've got a lot in common. But yeah, just give us a little rundown.
Yes, so oh my gosh, where should I talk about this in the context of relationships? Is there
Oh, well, yeah, I guess so. I mean,
yeah,
because this probably relates. I mean, I know that your coaching is geared for hypnotherapists, for those that, but yeah, I'm sure in your practice, you're dealing with people, with relationship issues. I mean, we're always in
right.
relationships, right? We're
Yes,
relating all the time.
yes. I've heard it said recently that when people spend money, they're spending money on health, wealth, or relationships. And just about anything that a person purchases, whether it's therapeutically or a product, they're wanting to affect their life in one of those three areas. So my story, if I were to start with, if in the context of relationships, I grew up in a really dysfunctional house where the relationship my parents modeled for me was just nightmarish, and it can be really difficult. I think it's possible, but it can be really difficult um, to find a healthy relationship after you've had something like that modeled for you, at least the first time without some intention. And so I actually got married at the age of 18 um, because I wanted to get out of my house. And this was back in, I think it was 1990, if I'm not mistaken. And I still, very much had this idea that I couldn't take care of myself, that I couldn't be out on my own. And so I thought the best way for me to get out of my house was to find a man to take care of me. And it's so funny because Stefania, he was not a man. He was a year and a half younger than me. He was actually 17 years old when we got married.
Wow. That's
No, he was 16 years old when we got married, and he turned 17 10 days after our wedding. His mom had to sign papers for him to get married.
wow.
So, and he grew up in a really rocky house that had, dysfunctional modeling for him. Excuse me. And so it was almost, it was like two children being married. And I think sometimes when a relationship starts in the context of like these kids really is what we were, I don't think we ever really grew up.
Mm.
And now that marriage ended actually 15 years ago. So I was married for 15 years and I've been divorced for 15 years, almost 16 years. And he and I we don't interact a whole lot, but I think he's done a lot of growing up since coming out of that marriage. I've done a lot of growing up, and it's just been a really learning experience. And honestly, a lot of what I've learned about relationships has blossomed in the context of hypnotherapy. The things I've learned about hypnosis and how we can change our stars, how we can change our our trajectory, even if things have been really rough in the past and we've seemed to be in a cycle of dysfunctional relationships in the past, that we can change that and we can step into new liberating ways of interacting with others. And it's been a really beautiful thing to be able to participate in.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, you have a definitely an interesting story, and it's a story that, believe it or not, I've heard over and over in different with different people and with men. Okay, this is not just. I know we're speaking to you, Laurie, and you're a woman, and you're sharing your story. But gentlemen, this is also something that a lot of I'm sure if you're out there, you can relate to this. That being in a dysfunctional relationship and possibly getting married quite young, and that's quite an interesting story where a lot of us, I mean, I too had a similar kind of experience that I was in a marriage, I guess, in at a very young age, and it seems like play. I think we don't really realize what marriage is at such a very early young age. But let's step back a little bit. And you said, you came from a dysfunctional family, and yet to, your husband back then too was from a dysfunctional family, isn't it? Isn't that interesting how, I mean, that probably was your most serious relationship, I would guess, was like your first, and you married him and and hope to live happy ever after. So what happens is we tend to attract, don't we? We tend to attract what we're really reflecting out in that world.
Mhm.
Would you agree with that?
Yes, I do agree. And I think that we learn so much of what we do by modeling others, which means that we observe something as even as young children, we notice the way that our parents interact with one another. And it's like we subconsciously memorize that way of interacting. And even if we say, I'm never gonna act like that, I'm never gonna do that, it's like it gets in our DNA, and it's just the very fact that we aren't consciously trying to repeat those unhelpful patterns shows that there's something automatic happening. And really, anytime I think of automatic, I think of the unconscious or subconscious mind, which I use those two interchangeably. But yeah, I think you're so right. It can be. I think it takes a lot of intention and maybe a little bit of training and understanding about how to break old patterns to make sure that you don't repeat those things that you grew up with, even if you like desperately don't want to.
Exactly, because a lot of the times we can find ourselves that we're repeating the same pattern. It's just with a different person. We just got a different character in our life, right? And therefore, we keep saying, "Well, I tried this, and I just came out of that relationship," and then you you try again, to the point where, in some cases, people just stop trying, or people
Yeah.
become very bitter and just don't believe in love anymore, don't believe in there is your ideal partner out there. you know it's really something that we, how do you know when you don't know? When you don't know, you don't know what you don't know, right? You've heard that phrase before.
Yeah.
And we possibly could be looking out externally, but what we should be doing is really reflecting within, right? So what would you say is a good sort of I guess tip, or something that where people are feeling quite stuck, and it may be that they're in this vicious cycle, this loop. I call it a very vicious cycle, a loop that you just can't get out of.
Yeah. In preparing for this conversation, I wrote down three things, like the three things that I think are most important to helping a person restructure their pattern inside of a relationship, to break that mold, to break that habit, that habitual way of interacting. And we can, and then I have a bonus one as well, because I thought of one more. I thought, oh, we have to put this one in first. So I'll give them to you one at a time, and we can discuss them, and then bring up the next one if that works. And the first one, I'm looking at my little note card here, and I'm trying to decide. The first one is the doozy. I might save that one. So the first one I'm going to say is, you know how sometimes we meet someone at that, you like on the first date, or even when we encounter someone that we're going to ask on a date later, or someone we're interested in, and it's like these sparks are flying, and there's this feeling that just, it's almost like it feels it's a familiar zing, and there's often something that is, it's like we all have these antennas up, and these antennas are kind of like putting out signals to a certain kind of person. And so for me, like after my divorce, I intentionally looked for uncomfortable, and by uncomfortable, I don't mean unsafe, but I meant things that felt unfamiliar, because I knew that my natural tendency was to look for the kind of person that I had spent the last 15 years with and was really comfortable with. And I thought, okay, if it feels too comfortable, I'm going to run the other way. And there needs to be some balance there. But if you want to break that pattern, it can be really helpful to break that pattern and start looking at the kind of person. And you could do this with intention. I know a lot of your audience is men, so you gentlemen can look at the kind of woman that you want to be with and start to think about what a first date would be like with a woman like that. And I think so often when we grow up in dysfunctional families, we look for the bad boy, or the high maintenance woman, or whatever it is. And when you start to think about, like, how am I going to just, like, who will I be happy with in a relationship, and start to realize that the spark might fly in a different way when you're with that other person, it can start to realize, I tell people, uncomfortable things can become automatic. Uncomfortable things can become comfortable. And if it feels too comfortable and familiar, it might just be a red flag.
Yes, I think I really love that, because that's what we're familiar. That's what the brain is used to. And of course, our brain, our conscious mind doesn't like change, right? It has to, did you know that it actually has to use a hell of a lot more glucose to actually make a change within the brain? Yeah. And that's why it's actually very easy to slip into a homeostasis, where we just sit back and just don't do anything, and just stay comfortable, because it's easier. We're using less energy and less glucose, believe it or not. Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, I really think that's so important, and also valid, because our cellular memory, it just feels comfortable, doesn't it? We feel comfortable in that. It's familiar. It's what we know, what we've seen, what we've heard, what we feel in that kind of environment, particularly with that type of person, being female or male. Correct. Yeah, like it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So what's your second tip, would you say?
Okay, the second tip. This is gonna feel like the doozy, but wait till you get the third tip. So
Okay.
the second tip, and I really believe this is so important, is to learn to be happy by yourself. And I believe that when we can find peace inside of ourselves, then that stops us from trying to glom on to another person to rescue us. And when you need someone in your life, they feel that, and it feels like a lot of pressure, and people tend to want to run away. And this is all stuff that's happening subconsciously. We're not consciously doing that. But they're picking up on these signals. And when a partner feels like their happiness is dependent, your happiness is dependent on them, it's a lot of pressure. And the fact of the matter is, it's not. Like, it's all happening inside of us. I've been listening to a lot of Louise Hay lately, and she says, you are the only thinker in your mind.
Yeah.
And when we say, can someone else make you mad? Can someone else make you sad? Can someone else make you feel a certain way? I really think that if we can find a way to get to a place where we realize like whatever's going on around us, we can be okay. And honestly, that's the reason I decided to become a hypnotist, because I realize that hypnosis gives us the tools to change our state, to step into happy no matter what crappy things are happening all around us.
Yeah.
And so I think when a person begins to cultivate internal peace, no matter what's happening, and I haven't mastered this. I don't think anyone probably will ever arrive in this area. But the more we learn to not let outside circumstances make us feel a certain way, and we let ourselves be in charge of our own state, that aligns us then, and that helps us, like that changes that antenna we're putting out so that we can attract a person who doesn't need to be needed because that kind of dynamic can often I think just create, it's like the fireworks that we feel at the beginning of a relationship feel so wonderful, but that kind of a feeling often turns into like the wrong kind of fireworks later.
Yeah.
And I personally don't think that we can make someone happy or that someone else can make us happy, but when we are happy in ourselves,
Mm.
it creates such a beautiful relationship where you can just be at peace in each other's presence. And this doesn't mean that if you're already feeling good about yourself, you're automatically going to help that other person. I'm not saying don't try to make them happy.
Yeah.
It's
No, I
like,
get that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
No, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
no,
definitely. Just before we go on, we've got a few people here, and I just wanted to just acknowledge them. And we have Oksana here. Hi, Oksana. She's all the way
yeah,
from Queensland here in Australia.
oh, how
It
cool.
says, hi, Stefania and Laurie. We are here. So great. And then we have Tatiana. Good morning from Melbourne to you both from Tatiana. Thank you, Tatiana, if you're still here. And the lovely Brian, all the way from Los Angeles.
Oh, awesome.
Thank you. If you're listening in, please chime in. Please feel free to comment, ask any questions while we're on, or if you're watching it on the replay, of course, you're free to ask questions later. But thank you for being here. So just going back to this, no one can make you happy. I mean, I love this. I just did a video not long ago, just a quick live about, actually, I did it in my men's group. And it was where I just said, gentlemen, remember, you can't make anybody happy. You can't make your woman happy. A lot of the times men get into this thing of like, I've got to make her happy. I've got to buy this. I've got to do this for her. I've got to do that for her. If I don't do all this, then she's not going to be happy. She's this like something just, and they get into this overwhelm of it, taking on the responsibility of making their woman happy, because I deal with men, but this same thing goes for women, ladies. It's the same thing. You can't make your man happy. You can't make your woman happy. This is an internal thing. And I always say, you've got to be like two wholes coming together. If you're a whole and, your partner is a whole and you come together, you then have two wholes that fit so beautifully together, and then just grow in that joy and happiness, and you'll be able to build your castle together, not just a house, a castle where it just blooms and it magically just evolves. But when we have halves or three quarters or a quarter, and we're trying to get filled by that other person, like you said, people just run from you. You don't want to be, you feel like you're being sucked into this vortex that you don't, it feels so uncomfortable. It feels like you're being suffocated. So yeah, working on yourself and knowing that you create your own happiness, and regardless of what's going on externally, you don't have to play into that. You don't have to dive into that. You can have compassion. I think that that's what we need to learn to have, have compassion, but not be drawn into it, that you have to be the savior of that other person. Because what happens, I mean, Laurie, you become resentful because, as you said, it all starts off like a firework. And I think I love that metaphor, because fireworks don't last long, do they? How when we watch fireworks, it's like, oh my God, they're so beautiful, like, and then it's like before you know it, they're gone. 5
Yeah.
minutes, 10 minutes. Even New Year's Eve, we have half an hour fireworks, 20 minutes, and it's like, boom, gone so fast.
Yes. Yeah. And when we come from a place of being secure in ourself first, we naturally want to be kind and be good to that person. And when we're doing it from a place of have to or of trying, as hypnotists, we know if we tell somebody that if you try to do that, we're actually setting them up for failure. So, if we're trying to make someone happy, it's almost like an ulterior motive. Whereas if we're just doing it because we're already happy and that's just flowing from us, I think really beautiful things can come from that.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Tatiana leaves us a little message here. She says, "We are the common denominator in all our dealings." Absolutely. So it's up to us to create the desired version of our life. How true is that? The right attitude is key. Love yourself first, and you will love others better. Tatiana, thank you.
That's awesome.
Yes, so, so true. Awesome. So our next, shall we move on, or do you have anything else to say
Yeah,
about
that's actually a perfect segue because that's my third secret
her?
is love yourself. And I really think that happiness springs from a place of self-love. And this is something when I share this with others, I think I feel a little I'm not sure it's always well received. And part of that reason is because I personally grew up thinking that self love was narcissistic or it was, I just had such a sense of like just being wrong all the time or being a bad person or needing to try in order to, being worthy of loving myself by doing something externally. And so when I first heard the idea, I think I mentioned Louise Hay a minute ago. She talks a lot about doing mirror work, like standing in front of a mirror, looking at yourself in the eye, and just telling yourself, I love you. And I recently heard her say that she will look herself in the eye and say, "Life loves you." And I thought that's really awesome because so often when we are operating from a place of fear or worry or like trying to make something happen in a relationship, it's fear that's underneath that, and love is the antidote to fear. So as we start to love ourselves, and this is especially, I think men especially can sometimes struggle with this message because men are positioned to be, and I can't speak of what it's like to be a man, but what I observe is it's like they have to be macho and they have to be strong, and love doesn't always, I think, present itself that way. But I honestly believe that when a person steps into self-love, there's a tremendous strength underneath that. And from that place of love, they will then generate that happiness that I talked about, where that happiness comes from inside them. So I lost my train of thought.
That's okay. But just to recap on Louise Hay, and a lot of people may not know who Louise Hay is. So do you want to just share with people who she is? And I know she's, um, passed on now. She's on the other side, but an amazing, amazing woman. Yeah, tell
Yeah.
us.
So I have not dived into her work a whole lot until recently. I've been familiar with it and I've touched on it, but so my understanding is that she started this journey of self-love herself in her 40s, and I'm in my 40s. So for me it really gives me hope to see someone who, grew up, oh my gosh, the circumstances that she grew up in make mine look like Leave It to Beaver, like look like just like a beautiful idyllic reality, because she grew up in horrendous abuse. And my understanding is that after she went through a divorce in her 40s, she was just looking for peace. And she started to realize that peace comes from inside. And she's made a really big impact on the world. She started a publishing company called Hay House, and all of like many amazing authors have been published underneath that umbrella. And she's just her biggest thing is like, we are responsible for the way we feel. We're responsible for the thoughts we're thinking. And now that I don't even know if that's a good way to say it, but she says, when you realize that you are the only thinker in your head and you detach from those thoughts and you realize, oh, that's really interesting. Right now I'm telling myself, oh, I'm such an idiot. I shouldn't have done that. Why do I keep screwing up? And when we just kind of take an observer position and think, oh, that's interesting. Look at me just thinking those thoughts. It then gives you some autonomy and some power over transforming them. And it can feel really, really weird to start to talk nice to yourself and to start to say kind things to yourself. But uncomfortable things can become automatic. And if we repeat them, like the very first time you called yourself an idiot, it felt weird. But we don't remember that because it probably happened when we were a little kid. And we've repeated it so many times that it's comfortable, it's automatic. We just do it by default. But our subconscious mind desperately it does not want to make a liar out of us. So when we say, why am I such an idiot? Why do I keep screwing up? Like, why do I attract this kind of person? The unconscious mind listens to that and says, as you wish. Like, all it wants to do is make your words about yourself true. So when you start telling a new story, things change in a really powerful way.
And I think if we can just imagine thinking of our subconscious mind as being a genie, because a genie is like, as you command, I'm here. Whatever your wish is my command, right? That's what we've grown up to know what a genie is. So if we really conceptualize that, really embody that our subconscious is a genie. It's our personal genie. And we tell that genie what we desire. And if we're not intentional, we will say all these crazy things to ourselves, won't we? And the genie says, well, yeah, okay, let's do that because that's what you think you are. That's what you keep repeating and it'll manifest. But yeah, I really love the fact that you said that Louise Hay works with mirror work, and I've worked, like, Louise Hay was like my first mentor, believe it or not, when I started, because I just loved every word that came out of her mouth. In fact, when I traveled the very first time, and I've done extensive traveling, her, You Can Heal Your Life book, that it's one of her
Yes,
first, that
I
was like
have.
my Bible. I traveled with it everywhere. If there was one book that I had, and if you look at it now, it looks like it's been chewed up by every dog, but I still love it because the pages are still intact. But it's my go-to book. But she does reiterate that about the self-love. And you said something interesting in one of your challenges the other day that I listened to. And if it's sometimes hard to say I love you, because you know what, we don't say I love you to ourselves very often. And the very first time that we say it, it's actually worse saying it to yourself than saying it to someone else that you want to tell them you love them. Would you agree? I think it's actually harder to say it to yourself than it is
I
saying it to
do.
someone else.
The first time I started doing this, I felt so uncomfortable. It like almost made me feel nauseous. Like, it just felt wrong to say that to myself because I had grown up thinking that I was bad, just having guilt heaped on me, and it felt really weird.
Yeah, yeah. So instead of saying I love you, what can we say?
So there's some ways you can soften it, and you can say, I like the idea of loving myself, or I am open to loving myself.
Mhm.
And just start to open yourself to that possibility. And one thing that I encourage people to do is when you're doing this, to actually kind of lean in and look at yourself in the eye. And I think I have not heard anyone else say this. I have no idea if it's true, but it feels like to me, when I am looking in my own eyes, it feels like I'm looking right into my soul, or like right into the unconscious mind, because the part of us that's in charge of automatic behaviors and in charge of like continually choosing the wrong relationship or any habit that we try to break, the part of us that does that is, it has all these processes, it has all this information. It has been paying attention to everything happening around us since we entered this world. I'm so sorry. My alarm is going off on my phone. um, and when we start to look into our eyes and we see like a window to that part of us that knows so much more than we realize we know, that has such a beautiful wisdom that we don't realize we have, and we tell that part of us, I love you, or even if you can't say I love you, you can say I see you. um, just an acknowledgement is such a beautiful thing, and know that that part of us, like, it has such a storehouse of information. I'm reading a book right now by Milton Erickson, who is one of like the founding fathers of
Yeah,
hypnosis.
the grandfather, isn't it? The grandfather of
Yeah.
hypnosis.
And he says over and over how he the reason he's such a great was such a great hypnotist is because as a little boy, or it might even been a teenager, he had polio, and all he could do is lay in bed. He was told that he would never walk again, and he just laid in bed and watched his siblings interact. And he had a lot of siblings, and he observed them, and he couldn't talk, he couldn't walk, he couldn't go anywhere, so he just watched. And he learned so much about human behavior, and he realized, like, the complex amount of processes that go in place just for a person to stand up and then walk across the room. He watched his baby sister learn how to walk. Um, as she was, he's laying in bed, he can't walk, and he watched the way her body moved to learn how to walk in order to teach himself to walk again. And he says we have such amazing skills that we don't realize because they're just automatic. So as we start implementing those things and start saying what we want to have happen, that part of us that knows things we don't realize we know goes in and draws from those resources and looks at the people that they know who have done this and let us plug in those same behaviors for ourselves. So
Yes.
it's
Yes, that is so powerful. Because a lot of our learnings too, that's the thing, a lot of us don't know, that a lot of our learnings, our behavioral patterns, all began between the ages of 0 and 8, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
if this wasn't mirrored to us, if this wasn't reflected, so if we didn't have parents that, encouraged us to look in the mirror and say, you're beautiful, or, say I love you, or say things that you really value in yourself, you've grown up not doing that. So it can be really difficult. But I love the fact that you said you're looking into your eyes and you really look into your soul. And I've done that. I've done that exercise. And I remember the first time it was actually quite frightening to look into my pupils, like really stand there and not look at your nose or your eyebrows or your skin. Just go in and just zoom into your pupils is just wow, isn't it? It is like the window of your
It
soul.
is weird. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just want to acknowledge Habaka. Hello, Habaka from Las Vegas. Hugs to you, darling. Thanks for joining us. And Brian also says that I honor you, I respect you, I value you. Yeah, and I think because, again, when talking to men, it is a little hard for men to say to themselves just off the back, if they're not used to it, to say, I love you. But I love the way you said, you know, I see you. I think that that's a really nice way of softening things. Yeah, for you gentlemen out there, you can, say that. And Brian says, no, Matt Dixon. Hello, Matt. Thank you for joining us. He says, you can just say love into the mirror. Yes, absolutely. The conscious mind won't reject that. And I think if you say love over and over, your conscious mind will define it. Excuse me. And because the conscious mind knows what love feels like, you'll start to feel it in, is there continuation? Maybe.
I think
Yeah,
in
there
your
is.
own body.
What does he say? You'll feel it in your
You'll start
own
to feel it in
mind.
your body.
Yes. We'll
Yeah.
define it. And because the conscious mind knows what love feels like, you'll start to feel it in your own body. Yes. Okay, I've just reread that. Sorry. So true. Thank you. Thank you, Matt. Yeah, another hypnotherapist joining us.
Yes.
He's
That's
a
really awesome.
he's a hypnotherapist, correct?
He is, and he's a yoga teacher as well. So he's really in tune with Matt has actually done some coaching with me and has helped me on my journey, because I think as coaches it can be really helpful to have other people coach us too. If we're the only coach coaching ourselves, we sometimes lack perspective. So I love that, Matt. I think that's very, very true. And I also really like what Brian was saying. I honor you, I respect you, I value you.
Yeah, definitely. And Matt reiterates, in your own body. Yes, absolutely. So, wow, this is pretty powerful stuff here that we're introducing to our audience. So we're up to 2, correct? We've just done 2,
So we've got seek the uncomfortable.
right?
Don't, just get out of your comfort zone and maybe experiment with spending time with people that aren't your normal kind of people to spend time with, because if you keep doing what you've always done, you're going to keep getting the same result. And then the second one is to cultivate being happy alone, just
Mhm.
being happy within yourself, and not necessarily alone, but realize that your happiness comes from you. If you think someone else is making you mad or someone else is making you feel a certain way, I just invite you to question that and say, what if I can respond differently? And then the third one is to start to cultivate self-love. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, that's self-love. So you did say you had a little bonus one, but did you want to did you want to add anything else to those 3 first before you give
Well,
us the big bonus?
this one really goes along with it. And I think that, so often when I know when I started on my self-love journey, which is still a journey for me, I don't know that we'll ever arrive and say, oh, I all the way love myself now. But it's so healing. I swear it heals mind, body, emotions, it heals relationships to start to step into that place. And so what's underneath, and my final little bonus tip is to learn how to start to acknowledge and step into your worthiness. And so often we were raised to think that if we screwed up, that we are a screw up. If you've done something in the past that you're not proud of, that means that you're broken, that means that you have to pay penance, or you have to just live a rough life from now on because of something you've done in the past. And I would love for people to understand that the past does not predict the future. And when we start acknowledging our worthiness in this moment, like the past is gone, and in this moment I can experience peace, I can experience self-love, I can experience happiness. When we recreate as we celebrate. And so every time we notice ourselves doing one little thing right, if we just tell ourselves good job, and we let ourselves kind of feel happy for a moment, it's so transformational. And this again goes back to that genie, that inner genie that looks at what we're focusing on and says, oh, that they're really paying a lot of attention to this, they must want more of it. The exact same thing happens with guilt. So when we've done something in the past that we might feel ashamed about, or something that, maybe we've repeated a pattern that our parents have done, and we start to beat ourselves up and we start to feel guilty about it, we're literally tuning our inner genie to keep doing more of that thing we screwed up doing. But when we forgive ourselves, and when we're kind to ourselves, and when we just acknowledge our worthiness, and this is something a person could do in the mirror, if that word worthy doesn't resonate with you, it's okay. But you can just say, it's okay for me to have a good life. It's okay for me to feel happy. It's okay for me to love myself. And if that's too much, you could say, I like the idea of, or I'm willing to believe that I am deserving of happiness. Because if we're always going around trying to punish ourselves, we're actually punishing the people around us as well. And when we're kind to ourselves, it gives us the capacity to be kinder to others as well.
Yes, absolutely. I just love that. Celebrate the wins. I do often, share that with people, and even with myself. I remind myself, because I must say I'm great at beating myself up. I put my hand up. I'm a little bit of a perfectionist. I'm definitely come a long way than what I used to be, but I can see sometimes how I can fall into that, you know, that pattern, and it is detrimental. It is detrimental to our own growth and development and the people that are in our lives. So celebrating and just acknowledging it. It doesn't mean you have to rush out and buy yourself something really expensive, but just really saying, good job. Say it out loud, even speaking to yourself. I know when I was younger, I used to my mum used to tell me I used to like talk to people, imaginary friends or whatever. But and I did that through school. And of course, going to school, kids can be quite mean, and I was put down, and I wasn't. That was suppressed. Talking to yourself. So I think bringing that back up, where you can just say little things like "Great job," you did so well. You're
Yeah.
doing. You're improving. I'm getting better. I know I'm getting better. So just acknowledging it and celebrating it with something that may be, taking a 10-minute rest or going out for a walk, something that you're not usually doing, but celebrate, definitely celebrate, because, whatever we celebrate does accentuate, doesn't it? Does we focus in on it more.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So just quickly acknowledging some more people. Thank you for chiming in, everybody. This is wonderful. We have the lovely Zanetta. Hello, Bella, she says. Zanetta from Fun Fresh Fridays. Of course, we'll be together tomorrow for anyone that likes to tune in that. And a Facebook user. Oh, no name. I love this. Thank you, whoever you are. And Matt Dixon says, yes, great points. So true. Thank you. And I just have to have a sip because my throat is or if you want to read this, please,
Yeah.
Laura, don't mind.
Brian says, you can't learn without making mistakes. We are learning to do something that doesn't exist in the Darwinian world. The exceptional human gift is the opportunity to learn, to give, and receive love. I love that.
Excellent. Drop the mic. That was perfectly said. Yeah. You can't learn without making mistakes. I mean,
So
and
true.
really, if we didn't make mistakes, how boring would it be? Like, how would we be evolving? How would we be growing? How would we, be connecting with our creative side? And I think sometimes, would you say, Laurie, the way society's going and all this perfectionism and social media, excuse me, showing up perfect, you got a hair well done, no wrinkles, no this, no that. And it just puts so much pressure, doesn't it? It just, those people that are been doing it for such a long time at anything, even in a relationship, people that have been married at, 20 years, 25, my parents have been married 60 years. What they had in the beginning is certainly not what it is now, and often my mum shares with me that, it wasn't easy being married in the beginning or having, getting to know someone. And I think when we are in a relationship, and she said to me, and I really value this point. She says, you never say because you never know. Even when you're with someone for for a lifetime, 60 years, she says there'll be something always that pops up that you never knew. So don't be surprised. And if you go in with that attitude too, you're going in with an open heart and with the element of surprise and embracing whatever comes, right?
Yes, I love that. And when we place such high standards on ourselves and try to achieve perfection, since that's an impossible idea, we end up, we're always going to fall short, and that just gives us one more reason to beat ourselves up. I remember you mentioned the challenge that I'm doing right now, where I'm coaching hypnotic entrepreneurs to put themselves out in the world. And the biggest thing I'm telling them over and over and over is, do not wait until you're ready. Do not wait till you have all your ducks in a row. Start putting yourself out there. And I remember listening to a podcast from Tim Ferriss many years ago, where he was talking about doing discomfort challenges. I don't think that's what he called them, but making himself do uncomfortable things on purpose. And talking about showing up perfect on social media. There are times when I'll be walking around and it's hot outside and I feel like I look terrible, and I'll go live on Facebook just to show people, if I can do it, you can do it. And Stefania, so I naturally have pure platinum blonde eyelashes and eyebrows. So when I don't have makeup on, it's like my face is invisible. And there have been a few times when I've gone live on Facebook with no makeup on, just to prove to myself that I can do scary things. The way we do little things is the way we do everything. And that used to really Like, I used to hate that saying, which I don't even know if it's true, but it's something that I've heard said, and it used to feel really oppressive to me because I thought, oh, that means I need to do everything right, the big things and the little things. But what's really liberating is you can start to teach yourself bigger principles. You can start to embed really life-changing concepts into your life in really small ways. So I moved into the neighborhood I live in now about 7 months ago, and I'm still exploring the area. And I try to walk down a different street every time I go out. And the other day I saw a street and I could tell that it didn't have any sidewalks, and I think they set it up that way because they don't want people coming in there. It was a really nice neighborhood. And I thought, what if people think I'm like, what if they wonder what I'm doing there? What if they judge me? Or what if, what if, what if? And I thought, you know what? It's going to be uncomfortable. So I'm going to do it. And I turned into that neighborhood and walked through anyway. And it was, oh my gosh, it was such a beautiful experience. It was like this little pocket of Narnia in the middle of my town that I didn't even know was there. And when we allow ourselves to get out of our comfort zone and to realize that voice in our head that's making it seem so scary for us to do something imperfectly is the part of us that is just afraid. Brian mentioned Darwinian stuff earlier. It's this prehistoric part of our brain that wants to keep us safe, that wants to keep us from getting eaten by a lion or kicked out of a tribe, because kicked out of the tribe long ago meant that you were the person that the lion pounced on. And that same part of our brain is trying to keep us playing safe. And when we realize that it is safe to get out of your comfort zone, it is safe to experiment, it is safe to make mistakes, it is safe to try out new things, to try out new relationships, that's where the magic happens.
Right. And there's never a perfect time. Perfect is now. Perfect is, like, and I've spoken to many people, both men and women, where they've met their lifetime partner in moments where they have been so unprepared, like not done up to the doozy, we say here in Australia, where they're just, with all their bling bling on, is just very natural. And a lot of the times most people that are out there are attracted to just natural. It doesn't mean you have to be a certain size or, wearing certain things. Just be, comfortable with getting uncomfortable. And I really, going back to, social media where you said just getting uncomfortable. And I know sometimes, just getting ready, going out, I'll say, like, I've got to do my hair, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. And sometimes I've just whacked it all up and just gone, pull it all back, bun, and that's it. And the other day I actually did a video where I was so unprepared on my live just a couple of days ago. And my hair was all over the place. I was at the gym. I just was, I won't say I was a hot mess because it was just not my usual look, right? And I was just on a video call with a girlfriend in Virginia, and she said to me, "Oh my God, Stefania, you look so good." She said her exact words were, she goes, "You look really sexy there on that bike as you're talking to me." And I looked at myself, thought, sexy? Like, what is so sexy about me? Like, my hair was, I started critiquing everything about me. And then I thought, when I got off the call, I said, what if? The what if question. What if I just got on and just did a video right now in my raw state? She thinks I'm sexy. I'm not doing this because she thinks, but how about I just really feel sexy in this, like, out of control hairdo, no makeup, no nothing. And I did, and it felt so good. It felt so good. So getting uncomfortable with being, getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. That's what it is. Being comfortable with getting uncomfortable. So for all of you out there that have to wait for the right moment to speak to that person or connect or whatever, feel good. Just do it, right? Just be.
Yes.
Just
Yes.
be. Well,
don't think about it. Just get up and do it.
and that's what attracts your ideal partner. That's, people just love that natural being. Well, this has been a great conversation, Laurie. This has been really, really good. So I really thank you for being part of the show. Let's Talk Relationship. And before we go, what last note do you want to say to our audience before we wrap this up?
I think it would just be to find really small ways to start to implement these. Choose one. Don't try to fix it all at once. And fix isn't even the right word, because we talked about dysfunctional families at the start, and I know I used to feel so broken and so screwed up, and then I had this realization, like, we are all dysfunctional in our own special way. We are all broken in our own special way, and at the same time, none of us is broken. And when you start to approach yourself with gentleness and kindness and realize you are exactly where you are supposed to be at this step in your journey, and from that place of kindness, just choose one tiny thing that you can implement today moving forward. As hypnotists, part of what we do is called future pacing, where we give someone a resource and then we say, okay, you're going to use this here and here and here. And so I double dare you to get in the habit of, when you look in the mirror, whether you're brushing your teeth at night or you're even walking past a building and you catch your reflection, just to say something nice to yourself. If I love you is too much, just find one kind thing to say and start being aware of the mean things you say, either in your head or out loud, and knock it off and replace it with something kind.
That's right.
I do the same. Like I said, none of us is perfect. I haven't arrived, but it's a beautiful journey once you start on the path.
It is a beautiful, beautiful journey. And the lovely Rich has just popped in. Hi, Rich.
Hi, Rich.
From California. Yes, yes, yes. Totally agree. Be kind. We are all screwed up in a perfect way. Thank you. Right? We're all on this journey, and also too, I think if we can also look at it that it's an illusion. We can play with this. Everything, life is an illusion. It's our playground to play, definitely. And Matt finishes off, says, knock it off. I think he was referring to Rich. Is that right?
Well, I was saying, if you're saying unkind things to yourself, knock it off.
Oh, okay. Beautiful. Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you once again, Laurie. And how can people reach you if they need to contact you for any hypnotists out there that want to grow their business, I guess, because that's what you help them with. You're amazing at that. So
thank you.
They can
The best way to reach me would just be to email me at Lori, Lori, at trancypants.com, which is TRANCYPANTS.com.
Yes, I love that name. Trancy Pants. Sounds so hypnotic.
My unconscious mind gave that to me.
Oh, really? Yeah, that absolutely. Our unconscious mind does everything. And Oksana says, thank you very much, Stefania and Laurie, for the great show. Many good ideas and suggestions. Thank you, Oksana, my dear friend in Queensland. All right. So everybody out there, thank you for joining in. If you're watching on the replay, please hashtag replay, or for you guys that are on live, please live, hashtag live. And we will see you next week at Let's Talk Relationship. If you have any questions, any topics, anything relating even to this discussion, we will get back to you. Laurie, I'm sure you'll pop in and answer any questions that people may have. And Richard says, thank you, ladies. I will watch the full episode tonight. Thank you. And I'm sure you'll have a comment as well. And once again, Laurie, I'm so grateful. Thank you. It's been a pleasure, and love to do this again some other time. Maybe we can do a hypnosis session. What do you think? Something
that could be so fun. Yeah,
it'd be so much fun. All right. Thank you once again, and as always, sending everybody love and passion from my heart to yours. And thank you, Laurie. Bye for now.
Thank you.